The biggest mistake I see people make about Gen Z is thinking they walked away from God. They didn't. They walked away from a version of faith that couldn't answer their questions. And now, in the middle of the most disruptive technology shift in human history, they're coming back. Not because someone convinced them with an argument, but because AI just exposed something religion could have told them all along. I'm Donaldson. I spent over 20 years managing multi-million-dollar engineering assets in aerospace and oil and gas. I've sat in rooms with the smartest people in the industry, watching technology change faster than any of us could plan for. And what I'm seeing right now, in real time, is a generation that grew up being told meaning comes from achievement, from likes, from algorithms, realizing that none of it holds up when a machine can outproduce them in seconds. Here's the pattern. For the last 15 years, Gen Z was sold a story: build your brand, optimize your output, monetize your identity. Worth was measured in metrics: followers, views, engagement rates. Then AI showed up and did in 5 seconds what used to take a person 5 hours. Suddenly, the metric-based identity collapsed. If a machine can write the caption, generate the image, and produce the content faster and better than you, what exactly are you worth? What's left of you when the thing you built your name on can be replicated by a prompt? That question is not new. It's the oldest question in Scripture. What is man that you are mindful of him? Psalm 8:4. Gen Z didn't invent this crisis of value. They just hit it faster and harder because they grew up in a world with no slow on-ramp to it. My generation had decades to adjust to disruption. We watched industries shift over years, sometimes over a full career. Gen Z is getting disrupted before they've even finished building an identity, before they've even figured out who they are apart from a screen. And this is where it gets interesting, because I'm watching this exact conversation happen in my own field. Engineers who spent their whole career believing their value was in their technical output are having the same identity crisis Gen Z is having about their content. Not because they weren't skilled enough, because they thought output was enough. AI is not going to take your job, but the person who knows how to use AI and knows why they're using it is going to take the job of the person who doesn't. I've watched this play out in real time on job sites and in boardrooms. The engineers who survived every shift weren't the smartest ones in the room. They were the ones who adapted fastest, and the ones who knew their worth wasn't tied to being irreplaceable at a task. That why is the part nobody is automating. And that's exactly the gap Gen Z is walking back into faith to fill. Not the shallow version of religion built on rules and guilt, the version built on identity. Genesis 1:27 says we're made in the image of God, not made in the image of our output, not made in the image of our follower count, made in the image of something eternal before we ever produced anything, before we ever posted anything, before anyone ever double-tapped a single photo. I talk to young engineers and young entrepreneurs constantly who tell me the same thing in different words. I built this whole persona online, and it still feels empty. That emptiness isn't a personal failure. It's a design flaw in a worldview that ties your worth to your productivity. And when a machine can outproduce you, that worldview doesn't bend. It breaks. That's the moment I'm watching Gen Z turn back towards something that doesn't collapse when the metrics do. Something that was true about them before the algorithm ever existed. There's a verse I come back to constantly in my own work. Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. For 20 years, I built things that could not collapse. Pressure vessels, structural assets, systems where one miscalculation cost lives. I know what it means to build on a foundation you can trust completely, a foundation that doesn't shift when the conditions around it change. And I'm telling you, the smartest young minds I talk to are realizing the foundation they were handed. Performance, metrics, algorithmic approval was never load-bearing to begin with. It was decoration on top of a structure that had no real footing underneath it. So what does this actually look like on the ground? It looks like young people quietly returning to church, not because a pastor pressured them, and not because of some viral revival moment, but because they watched AI eliminate the jobs and content strategies they built their identity around, and they needed something that wasn't a moving target. It looks like private prayer before public performance. It looks like a generation asking, "Who am I when I'm not producing anything?" And for the first time in a long time, getting an answer that isn't, "You're nothing without output." I want to be direct about something because I don't sugarcoat this for engineers, and I won't sugarcoat it here. AI is not the enemy. Treating your identity as a byproduct of your output is the enemy. AI didn't create that lie. The culture did, years before AI ever showed up. AI just made the lie impossible to ignore. And honestly, that's a gift, even though it doesn't feel like one. Some of the most painful disruptions in my career turned out to be the exact moment people finally rebuilt on something solid instead of something convenient. This is also why I believe the leaders, Christian, engineer, entrepreneur, doesn't matter which, who will actually thrive in this next decade are the ones who can hold two things at once: full command of the technology and an identity that doesn't depend on it. Nobody follows you because your math is perfect. They follow you because they trust you. And trust isn't built by a machine. It's built by a person who knows exactly who they are before they ever open a laptop, before they ever launch a campaign, before they ever chase a single metric. If you're watching this and you feel that tension, the pressure to keep producing, keep optimizing, keep proving your worth in a world where a machine can outperform you by lunchtime, I want you to hear this clearly. Your value was never in your output. It was settled before you built anything. Psalm 139:14, I am fearfully and wonderfully made, not fearfully and wonderfully productive. Made, past tense, already true, already finished, already settled, long before your first post and long after your last one. That's the real reason Gen Z is returning to God in the AI era. Not fear of technology, not rejection of progress. A rediscovery that meaning was never supposed to come from the machine, or from the metrics, or from the mirror of everyone else's approval. It was supposed to come from something that doesn't get outdated by the next model release. Something that was true about you in the beginning and will still be true long after the algorithm changes again. If this resonated with you, comment the word foundation below right now, and I'll send you a free breakdown on building an identity that holds up under any disruption, technological, professional, or personal. Make sure you hit that follow button first so my DM can actually reach you. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe, because we're going to keep having these conversations at the intersection of leadership, engineering, and faith. I'm Eric Donaldson. Follow me for global trade, leadership, and building a legacy.